Knox, so you just restated, no instance of political misconduct was found.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you recount the testimony of the former Office Surface Mining Regulatory Support Division Chief, who was later relieved, that his testimony makes it sound like it was all political. Did you have complete authority to review all of his communications and email, and did you find any substance to support his allegations?
His complaints did indicate that he perceived political influence as part of the reasoning for the 2008 rule to be directed to be used. But we found no evidence to corroborate that others had the same perception. And in fact, the independent decisions of other OSM members, aside from the counselor to the director, to use the 2008 rule lent credibility to it being just a reasonable scientific choice.
Yeah, and I've got to say I still don't quite understand the rationale between 83 and 08, but that's not your expertise, and we may get into that if we do another hearing on this. Yesterday, some senators sent a letter to Janice Schneider. She's nominated to be Assistant Secretary for Land and Minerals Management, which oversees the OSM. And in that letter, they said, the report shows that political appointees at OSM ordered career staff and subcontractors to change the method for estimating job losses largely for political purposes. Is that a true statement?
Congressman, as I've stated, we did not find evidence that there were political motivations behind the decision to make the changes. We found that the decisions were made, and we reported how they impacted the contractor and the contractor's performance, but we did not find evidence of political influence.
What about the contracting process? Have changes been made? I mean, it seems to me that an incompetent contractor was hired. I'll just read a couple of quotes here. West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, and this significantly affects them, wrote the draft analysis from the contractor was, quote, showed very little depth of understanding, and that, quote, the characterization of this document as junk is not just one person's observation. We had similar analysis from another state where it would have a major impact, Wyoming. Kathy Ogle, geological supervisor, the analysis is insufficient for a document of this importance. And then one from Virginia, another state where it would have significant impact. I certainly hope the EIS is not going to be developed based on this inaccurate and incomplete information contained in this document. It seems to me like they hired someone who was totally incompetent and not properly overseen. Now, what are we going to do about that? That, to me, is a real question for inquiry. I don't like wasting money.
Congressman, what we observed, what we discovered during the course of our investigation was that this contract was awarded to a small and disadvantaged business concern probably to accelerate the timeline of award. And although procedures were followed, they chose a contractor that had limited experience in EIS process and really none in a programmatic EIS such as this. The timeline for the award period of performance was very restrictive, and it seemed that the requirements that the government expected were not well defined from the beginning. Changes such as even using the 2008 rule as opposed to the 83 rule came very late in the period of performance and afforded the contractor a limited amount of time to make changes. There were, I could go on and on, but there were other reasons.
Given the fact that the contractor was essentially removed for incompetence or reason, not political influence, did they suffer any financial consequences? Did they rebate some of the money that had been paid since they produced a product that was junk, according to impartial officials from another state?
Congressman, the contractor agreed to the terms and conditions that the government came to in terms of how the contract was ended. They were not terminated for convenience or for default. We simply allowed the period of performance to expire, and the contractor was paid for all the services they had rendered to date.
Well, I got to tell you, I have an overall concern with government contracting generally when we don't require performance and people don't have some flesh on line, and coming from the state of Oregon, which has the worst performance in the entire United States on hiring a contractor for its, online services for the healthcare bill, the SHOP is, I just really think that somehow we need to construct contracts that have benchmarks, and if you don't reach a benchmark at a certain point, then you're out, or there's going to be penalties or withholding, and you keep going with these benchmarks. You don't give somebody a bunch of money, tell them to go out and do it, and they come back with what's described as junk, and they say, oh yeah, well, in the end, we just let the contract expire, and they kept the money. That's just not, as a taxpayer, I don't like that, I got to tell you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Time the gentleman